Well, it's always going to be challenging, and the fundamental distinction is, of course, the people I represent, ACPO, lead the service. We are charged with leading our organisations, not following them. So we have to set the standards, we have to set the policy, we have to make some very difficult decisions in very hard financial times. We will not step back from that, but equally, we will not step back from protecting our front line, because every chief I represent and every chief officer I represent knows you do not deliver the sort of effective policing service we are currently delivering through a force with low morale and low self-esteem. And if you look at the figures, crime at a 30-year low, confidence in policing ever increasing, way above many other parts of the public sector. That does not send me the message that we have a force that is demoralised. What we do have is a force that is very concerned. I think it's a concern about the cuts for professional reasons. We want to deliver a good service, and I think it's worried about the pay and the pensions reviews, because that's personal to the officers. What we have said is we will not sign up to anything that is not fair, and I absolutely stand by that decision. How the police service is held to account is a matter for government, not a matter for police, and we've absolutely stood by that in the face actually of some quite severe criticism, certainly from the APA or members of the APA, who feel we should be far more vocal about how we're held to account. I'm dead against that. We should be held to account by whichever method the government of the day thinks fit, because the government has a mandate to deliver on that, and I think it's an important cornerstone of the British policing model. What we have a right to, an absolute right to, is clarity on how it works, and a clear recognition that chief officers are operationally independent in law. That is to say, we make the decisions on how we deploy our resources to keep the communities we have a privilege of protecting safe. We are then held to account by an independent structure, yet to be defined fully, for what we have done. That's why we have argued for a protocol which government has accepted. That's why we've argued for a strategic policing requirement, because chief officers of local forces must have protection when they deliver against the national agenda. You cannot have a situation where, when the chief officer deploys people to, say, an international terrorist event or a major public order event, that they are vulnerable in their own job because they're not delivering against the local agenda. It's a fine balance, but it has to be structured in that way if you're going to keep a basic British model of policing. Well, and the funding is difficult in the short term. That's because, as you know, the police reform bill is changing authorities. Authorities would pay for just over a third of our current income, government about a third, and we take a third from reserves or slightly less. So the total cost of ACPO about £2.3 million a year to deliver the whole national policing agenda. All national work is done through these offices, so it's a big piece of business. I understand why authorities are concerned, so we live with that. We have spoken to the Home Secretary. She recognises the value of ACPO, and I'm confident ACPO will continue until we start to reform. Well, currently, of course, we're in consultation. Broadly, the service, or certainly ACPO, recognises the importance of recognising policing as a profession, and that's very much, I think, what Peter's core objective was. Policing is a profession, it should be recognised as such. So I do find it surprising that some within the organisation don't feel or don't see us as a profession and see that as a bad thing. We should be proud of what we do. I think part of it is very difficult, and Peter's report is not so detailed on where the final decision-making body rests. That may be outside a chartered institute, but let's wait and see what the consultation brings. Let's work very closely with government and our colleagues in the Federation and the Superintendents Association and develop something that will be fit for purpose for the next 100 years. Well, again, we're working this up and we will respond in the timescales we've been given. My sense of it currently is there needs to be one standard for a detective. We've achieved that. The PIP programme, I think, is one of the most powerful examples of professionalising the detective at a certain series of levels. It's not around rank, it's around what you're trained to do and what your qualifications are, and I think we should be very proud of that. It is not impossible to develop the same sets of standards for all the disciplines of policing. And my sense of an institute is exactly that. It would be the institute that sets the standards that colleagues from across the 44 forces can aspire to achieving, to recognise their abilities in a formal, structured way. I think that's very exciting. I think it's always been a very good role, very positive role for specials. My sense albeit I didn't have them in Northern Ireland when I was a real chief, but I had a part-time force, was around community policing. And embedding local people in local communities on a voluntary basis is a hugely powerful model and something we should build on. Indeed, as I came up on the train today, a full-page advert in a newspaper about joining. I was thinking of becoming a member myself. So I do think it's very important. What I am seeing in London only the other week, and this may be a sort of an emerging pattern, was actually special constabulary officers from other forces on mutual aid to help deal with a royal wedding. So I think we're widening the role, which again may make it more exciting for people wanting to join. I think it's a great part of a British tradition of policing that should be supported.